Thor had returned to Asgard victorious but troubled. His armor, once polished and gleaming, was dented and scarred, his face etched with exhaustion. For months, he had been locked in a relentless war against the frost giants, defending the Nine Realms with every ounce of strength he could muster. Yet, despite the hard-won victory, an inexplicable unrest brewed within him, a feeling that something dark loomed over Asgard. Seeking peace, Thor wandered alone through the great halls of the palace, his steps echoing softly against the marble. The Asgardian night was quiet, and the stars seemed to whisper of a looming storm. Just then, a figure appeared in the shadows, her face hidden beneath a deep hood. It was Sif, one of the ancient seers of Asgard, her eyes wide with fear. She approached him with a foreboding look, one that made even the mighty Thor uneasy. "A danger stirs, great prince," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "An assassin from beyond the stars, a creature who knows only destruction, sent to claim your life and the power of Asgard for those who lurk in darkness." Thor's brow furrowed. Who would dare send such a fiend against Asgard? Sif's eyes seemed to look beyond him, as though she were staring into a vision only she could see. "They are the shadows, unknown to us. But the assassin? His name is Lobo, the last of his kind, a being feared across galaxies, a hunter of gods." Thor had heard tales of Lobo, whispered among the bravest warriors who dared to speak his name. Lobo was said to be relentless, possessing strength and resilience that defied reason. Thor's grip tightened on Mjolnir, and he felt a surge of defiance. "Let this Lobo come. I have yet to face a foe I cannot defeat." But Sif's warning remained heavy in his mind as he readied himself for battle. The skies over Asgard tore open as the deafening roar of Lobo's interstellar bike shattered the night. Lobo, the infamous main man of the cosmos, arrived like a comet, his bike spitting fire and smoke as it screeched to a halt before the golden halls. He stepped off, a dark grin stretching across his face as he surveyed his target's domain. This wasn't just another job. This was a rare thrill. "Oi, Goldilocks, I'm here to take you down," he called out, his voice echoing across the grounds. The sheer audacity of it sent ripples of anger through the palace. Thor emerged, the god of thunder framed by the golden light of the palace behind him. He studied Lobo, sizing up his foe. Lobo was a striking figure, a leather-clad marauder with red eyes that seemed to burn, skin ashen from battles waged across galaxies, and a grin that promised nothing but trouble. Thor could see that Lobo was no mere mercenary. He was chaos personified. Without a word, Lobo launched himself at Thor, his chains whirling, fists swinging with brutal force. Thor raised Mjolnir, summoning lightning, and the two forces collided in a whirlwind of raw power. The ground trembled, and Asgard's mighty walls bore witness to a clash unlike any other. But despite Thor's might, Lobo had an unnerving resilience. Each blow Thor landed seemed to only encourage him, as if he thrived on the very energy that Thor unleashed. Blow after blow, they fought, and to Thor's surprise, Lobo had the upper hand. The Charnian's sheer brutality left even the god of thunder staggering. Thor hurled lightning, enough to topple a mountain, but Lobo barely flinched. Each strike Thor made seemed to bounce off Lobo, who laughed and swung his heavy chain like a battle-hardened beast. "That all you got, Thunderboy?" Lobo sneered, pulling himself up and swinging his chain. He managed to hook Thor's leg, yanking him to the ground, and for a moment, the god of thunder found himself pinned beneath Lobo's monstrous strength. But Thor was not one to yield. Summoning strength from the core of his being, Thor channeled the fury of the storm. The skies darkened, clouds gathered, and thunder rumbled ominously as he unleashed a torrent of lightning, so powerful it briefly lit up the entire realm. Lobo roared in defiance, resisting the storm with every fiber of his being. But even he could feel the relentless power of Thor's true strength pressing him back. Thor finally broke free of Lobo's hold, standing tall as the wind swirled around him, his eyes burning with resolve. "You have strength, Charnian," but strength alone will not conquer Asgard. As the battle raged on, Thor realized he needed to change his approach. Lobo was no ordinary opponent. He was relentless, a force of chaos who thrived on brute force. And so, Thor decided to use strategy over strength. Summoning a new bolt of lightning, he launched it just beside Lobo, not to strike him, but to distract him. The flash of light blinded Lobo for a moment, allowing Thor to land a precision blow with Mjolnir, knocking Lobo back. This new approach began to turn the tide. Thor struck strategically, attacking the vulnerable points in Lobo's armor, exploiting every weakness he could find. Lobo staggered back, his grin finally faltering. He hadn't expected the god of thunder to shift tactics, to think beyond pure power. But even so, Lobo was relentless. As blood trickled from a wound on his face, he grinned wider, lunging again with renewed ferocity. It was then that Thor saw it, the subtle tremor in Lobo's stance, a brief hesitation in his movements. The Charnian was not invincible after all. He was faltering. With a mighty roar, Thor unleashed the full fury of his storm powers. The winds howled, lightning danced, and thunder boomed as he called forth Mjolnir, charging it with every last ounce of his power. Lobo swung his chain wildly, but Thor dodged, his movements precise, driven by divine purpose. Finally, Thor saw his opening. With a mighty leap, he brought Mjolnir down upon Lobo, the force of the blow shattering the very ground beneath them. Lobo fell, his strength finally spent, the indomitable bounty hunter defeated. As Lobo lay on the ground, struggling to rise, he looked up at Thor, defiance still glinting in his red eyes. "Guess you're tougher than you look. Goldilocks," he muttered, his voice a strained rasp. But even in defeat, there was a hint of respect in his tone. Thor, breathing heavily, looked down at his fallen foe. He knew Lobo would live to fight another day. After all, a creature like him was nearly impossible to truly destroy. But today, Asgard was safe. "You have fought well, Charnian," Thor replied, his voice steady. "But remember this, Asgard stands against all who seek to claim it. No force, no darkness, shall ever conquer the realm of the gods." As Thor turned to walk back into the golden halls, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The threat to Asgard was not just from monsters and beasts. It came from shadows, from those who would strike from the darkness. But as long as he held Mjolnir, as long as the thunder roared in his heart, Thor would be ready.